Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
So for anybody who now thinks that this is unbelievable, impossible, that again, Donald Trump back in July. So the same Donald Trump who doesn't believe that Russian hackers could have even thought, let alone tried to influence the election and help him win. Again, him asking Russia, perhaps in jest or perhaps not, to hack Hillary Clinton in an attempt to influence the election and help him win. Well, what does this all mean and what happens now? And for that, let's bring in our panel tonight. Jeannie Zanos, professor of political science at Iona College, also a senior advisor at the consulting firm Applied Techonomics, former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, I have many questions, but yes, first off, as a guy who was there in Washington, who got the briefings, just how vulnerable are we to cyber attacks? And let's start with Russia.
Well, lots of people are and governments are making efforts to learn our secrets, whether they be commercial, business, or governmental secrets.
I know they're trying, but how vulnerable are we?
They're trying. We have a robust, superior, in my opinion, capability offensively and defensively.
Okay. This is the part of the story, Jeannie, that I'm confused as which would be worse. So this weekend you're watching the Meet the Presses and all the rest, and I see Reince Priebus out there strongly fighting the fact that the RNC was never hacked. What's worse? That they weren't hacked and only the Democrats and Wasserman Schultz and Hillary's campaign were hacked and the Republicans weren't targeted? Or the Republicans were targeted, they were hacked, and that information was never released here in an attempt to harm them for the campaign? Which is more harmful? I'm not sure.
I don't know which is more harmful. It's a good question, but he was absolutely vehement, as you mentioned, and the evidence is that they were hacked, but that information was not released. Of course, we have to depend on the FBI and the CIA to give us the information on this, and part of the problem is we are hearing somewhat conflicting reports out of some of these intelligence agencies. And so it's really important that Congress get together now and not even wait until the inauguration and in the new administration and start looking into these allegations and ensure, you know, regardless of what happened in the past, ensure that this type of thing doesn't happen in the future, and if it does, that all Americans are aware of the facts involving this case. And that's the only way you can guard against something like this, is at least get the information out there.
I'll get to the Congress thing in a second with our congressman here, but let's just do a quick little reminder of just recent history with Russia. They're accused of war crimes in Syria and working with Assad. They're accused of certainly aggression in Crimea. They're accused of huge civil infringements on their own people, etc.
Georgia as well.
Georgia, we can go on. Nobody thinks that they're good guys, but the only person who's defended them, not this week, not last week, but throughout the entire election process, to me, inexplicably, has been Donald Trump. And while I may not have understood or thought it was good politics, or I thought he was dead 10 times throughout the campaign with the things that he had said, at least at the end, there were red meat politics that made sense. Nobody's going to tell me, Andrew, that there's a big Russian constituency, maybe with the exception of Brighton Beach, that's helping to, you know, that's supporting the defense of Vladimir Putin. But nonetheless, Trump did that throughout. I don't think you got to wear a tinfoil hat to say something doesn't smell right here. And this thing, there's so many levels to this. Now, Tillerson's his guy for state potentially. We'll get into that next segment, but this just is crazy.
Well, we had been asking throughout the election whether Trump had any financial interests in Russia, whether he owned businesses in Russia, or whether, as had been widely reported, Russian financiers had financial interests in the Trump companies. And so that explained why he was seemingly more
and
flattering.
Just expand a tiny bit. Maybe some of his debt that was held by some of the foreign banks was held by either the oligarchs or Russian banks. But
so everybody was trying to figure out what it is that has Trump in such a different track than anybody else in American politics.
For no political benefit,
that he's talking so fawningly about Russia and about Vladimir Putin. Now there's this hacking that's going through, which does appear as though it was done to try to help Trump win. And I think it's, Jeannie was talking about, we need to fix this so that we have security in our electoral processes going forward and so that we're not subject to this kinds of hacking. the Electoral College meets 1 week from today, and the electors have asked, or some of them have asked, for intelligence briefings so that they can get a sense of how deep the hacking went and whether were there any connections to the Trump team during the campaign. And frankly, I think the American people have a right to know. Was Russia doing this entirely on their own? Were they doing it in cahoots with the Trump campaign? And by the way, let's get that answer before we actually elect our president a week from today.
And while Andrew's right, 10 electors have asked for this information, including one Republican from Texas who apparently is willing to change his vote. They'd need to be 36, I believe, here, or 37 to actually flip this thing. But Congress could, Republicans could, if they wanted to, drag this thing out. So we're going to go through the inauguration, and this will be more of a generic fact-finding mission about where we are. And I've heard some Republicans, including your former colleague Peter Hoekstra, saying that as much today, that this is generally about hacking cybersecurity. However, 3 notable Republican senators, McCain, Rubio, and Graham, who are no Trump fans, or at least they bit their lip during the campaign at different things, are now saying, no. Russia's a bad guy. And McConnell going as far as he did after biting his lip, Lord knows, throughout this, saying Russia is not our friend. Explain what triangulation means, because for the first time since Trump was elected, he actually could be on defense here. Whether it was all a plan or he's just flying by the seat of his pants, he's kept everybody on defense on Capitol Hill because they've never seen this kind of a game plan before. But now, not just Democrats, not just the press, not just the intelligence agency, but now seemingly a growing number of Republicans, they may want to put him back in his place here a little bit. Explain a little bit about the dynamics that the people that don't know the inner workings of Washington could be going on right now.
Well, I'm not sure that the inner workings of Washington are much different than in any other social behavior of people in a small society. In any event, that's a subject for another discussion. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. As disturbing as these allegations that the Russian government released this information to WikiLeaks.
Are you up for a position right now on the Trump? No, I'm kidding.
No, but you know, fairness and equity help both sides. So I'm going to try to keep my powder dry. I used to be a judge as well, and I'm used to sort of waiting till the evidence, all the evidence comes in.
And I don't have a ton of time here, Steve. The intelligence community, with what they found, and they presented in October, and I'll get to that in 1 second. With what they have, they don't go willy-nilly with this.
Well, you know,
there seems to be a consensus, at least, that Russia was not a good guy throughout this process.
Clearly not a good guy. The motivation is what's in question.
Sure.
And there's another disturbing element. The FBI says the information is ambiguous and funny with regards to Russia's culpability in releasing this information, these Clinton emails, to WikiLeaks, while the CIA was more forthcoming, saying, no, there is a direct communication. The good news is that both parties have now said we want a thorough investigation of this matter.
Is that BS, or you think we're going to have it?
I'm certain we will have it.
I know I'm already heavy, Ralph, but I want to spend just another minute here, guys. I'll start with Eugene, and you guys both jump in. I also saw this weekend Congressman Schiff from California on the Intelligence Committee saying and asked, if you knew about this in October, right, and the administration knew about it, why didn't you say anything? Do you think Obama didn't say anything, and Schiff thought he made an error in not doing it because McConnell wouldn't play ball and it wouldn't come across as bipartisan, or that he thought Hillary was going to win anyway and it would be overkill if he went there? Why do you think he didn't, and do you think it was a major mistake that he did not chose to get more vocal about what the Intelligence Committee believed Russia was doing and did during the campaign?
I mean, we don't know why he didn't, and it's hard to speculate, but I do happen to think it is a mistake. You know, I mean, you hope that the president and the community, the intelligence community, will put aside politics, and I know it's almost comical in this day and age, but put aside politics and investigate and look into any allegations that are this serious, regardless of the timing. But of course, look at the Comey letter and how much flack that's gotten. It's a really hard call. I wouldn't second guess the president or pretend to know why he didn't do something. But, you know, you look back at it now and the implications are potentially real. I mean, we don't know for certain.
Do you think it would have made a difference?
I'll second guess the president. Yeah, I think Professor Obama, who wanted to stay above it all and didn't want to seem partisan, got in the way of President Obama on this one. And yeah, investigating is one thing, but telling the voters who actually had to make that choice that their vote was being influenced by an outside nation?
Or the head of the Democratic Party as opposed to Professor Obama.
10 seconds. Should he have done it?
No. He wanted bipartisan buy-in on these allegations. The Republicans were wary, especially given the FBI's wavering on whether there was a direct connection to
But
the
he
Russian
didn't have to go to
government.
motivation. He could have said they did it.
Well, it was very shortly before the election, and he did not want the President of the United States to intrude on the election days before and be seen as having made an impact on the results.
And look where we are now.
Well,
All right.
history may judge him better than
Well,
that.
we will, I'm sure, full part of this conversation to our next topic. When we come back, tough guys, deal makers, sounds like a good action movie. But does it also sound like the group who ought to be advising the president, carrying out his policies? We'll talk about the evolving cabinet after this.